welcome. Uh, we'll just wait more, 15 seconds for remaining participants to kind of join, and then we'll get started. And meanwhile, please feel free to kind of use the chat box and let us know where are you joining from. And we are really great to have you, with us today uh, on this particular webinar. Hey, Manoj, how are you?
Hey Madhur, all good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
All good, all good. Thank you so much for joining in. All right. I think we can get started now. So once again, good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome and thank you for taking out time to, kind of join this particular webinar today. My name is Madhur, and I lead the data and AI practice at Octane Solutions, and it's my pleasure to kind of have you all joining this webinar, and that is in collaboration with IBM. And today our topic is multi-agent orchestration for the faster and smarter operations. Uh, Now, every one of you know artificial intelligence is a topic that almost every organization is discussing today, and we have seen the growth of generative AI. We have seen the chatbots, we have seen the AI assistant coming in, and they can answer the questions and summarize the information and can help you work faster, right? But the next important question is about how this is really going to work for the business. Can AI do just more than a question? Can AI understand the business problems, and can AI literally look into the information from the different department and sources? And also more about can it identify what is really causing a problem, and also what is going to be the action, right? And what should be the action to be taken? So this is what the different questions that strikes in everyone's mind from the enterprise AI perspective, and this is the area that we are going to explore today, right? And to kind of have this been more elaborative, we are partnering with IBM to kind of have this particular webinar for you. So before we kind of move on and move forward, let me introduce Octane Software Solutions as well. So we are IBM Gold business partner, and we work with the organizations on their data analytics, automation, and AI initiatives. And our focus is on helping the business use technology to kind of solve the real business problems and improve the way decisions are made today and how the operations are being managed, right? So we are pleased to collaborate with IBM for today's session, and we are going to bring a practical demonstration to all of you, right? So let me introduce Manoj as well. And it's my real pleasure to kind of introduce our speaker, Manoj Shetty, who is a brand technical sales specialist at IBM. And Manoj brings a plethora of experience, and he's got more than 12 years of experience from the data, AI, and analytics portfolio side. And at IBM, Manoj focus on and his more focus is towards the watsonx portfolio, and he works closely with the enterprise AI technologies and the use cases. And his area of focus is the watsonx.ai, watsonx.orchestrate, and IBM Bob. And today, the Manoj is literally going to take us through the very interesting manufacturing use cases, and he's going to demonstrate how the multi-agent can work across the multiple different operational areas, and how this multi-agent orchestration really works in practical case, right? So thank you, Manoj, once again for joining us today. And over to you. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Madhur, for that wonderful introduction. Glad to be a part of this call and look forward to the conversation. Okay, so without wasting much time, I'll just quickly share my screen. Right before I do that, I'll again take a minute to just quickly introduce myself. As Madhur mentioned, I've been with IBM for more than 2 years now, working as a brand partner sales specialist. But previously, I worked as a consultant in the data AI analytics space at Fractal Analytics for 6.5 years. After that, I was also working for a data engineering company called Alteryx, right? So here at IBM, my mandate is to take care of this territory, and I take care of AI as a business. By that, I mean Watson suite of products today I'm primarily going to focus on Orchestrate, which is on the agentic side of things, along with probably I could give you a glimpse of Bob as well. But that's primarily my mandate that I've been driving at IBM. Uh, Madhur, I want to keep it as interactive as possible. So if there are
Yes,
any
absolutely.
questions that are coming up that be relevant, please feel
Yeah.
free to stop at any point. And please let me know once my screen's up. I'm going to project my PPT before I actually do the demo.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. Right. So Madhur already set the stage. Everybody is talking about AI, right? I mean, initially it started with chatbots, assistants, LLMs. Now everybody is going gung about AI agents. Now, if you would have asked me the same question 6 months ago, I mean, the narrative would have been very different. But now, the more conversations that we are having, the more we have realized that literally every software, every tool that exists within an enterprise is driving a agentic story, that why don't you start building agents on our platform, or why don't you use an agent which sits on top of our platforms, right? Whether it is SAP, Oracle, service now, anything that you could think of, or anything that exists open source, right? Like a crew.ai, langchain, langcrew, you name it, and every tool and software is actually driving their agentic story. Now, we have realized that we're soon going to come to a point where we are going to have a agentic sprawl. By agentic sprawl, I mean building agents is probably the simplest part of the equation. And how do you actually scale it? How do you actually monitor it? And how do you actually govern it? Right. So that is the toughest part that folks are trying to figure out, right? And that's one of the major reasons why you see not a lot of pilots that are actually going into full-fledged production, right? So I'll try to keep my focus there, because that's where the sweet spot is, right? Quick introduction about watsonx Orchestrate. It is a agentic platform where you can build your agents, but at the same time, like I mentioned, every platform provider that you could think of is also providing a platform where you can build agents, right? So it is also like, think of IBM Orchestrate as the name suggests, where you can natively build agents, but at the same time, if you have, let's say, agents which are already built on a Copilot, a ServiceNow, SAP, open source, anything that you could think of, and bring them onto one platform, that becomes a single pane of view, right? And that's a game changer for enterprises, especially the C suite, like the C suite, like the executive team members, because if all of these keep happening in silos, where each department is building their own agent using a different technical framework, that's a challenge in itself, right? So how do you govern all of that, right? So we provide you one single platform where you can actually do all of that. Now, within watsonx Orchestrate, there are different modes through which you can actually go about building agents. There's a no-code way, or let's say using a flow builder. If you're non-technical users, I'll give you a run through of that as well in detail. But if you are a non-technical user, you can just, it's a breeze creating an agent, right? There is a chat window where basically you write prompts and you can start building agents. There is a pro code way where through a MCP you can connect to a ADK, and then through your CLI you can start building the agents. It natively understands that if there is a business problem, how do I go about building agents? Similarly, we understand that you have already invested um, a lot of substantial money resources into bringing all of these technologies, right? So how do we work with your existing investments, whether it's agents, models, anything that you could think of, right? Now, this is a very important slide because, like I mentioned, right, nobody is starting from the grounds up. So, how do you create a open agentic framework where you're not tied to one platform, right? At IBM, we believe in a open agentic framework. By that, I mean, if you just concentrate on right side of the slide, right, we're literally talking about your agents could be deployed anywhere, your tools could be running anywhere, your models could be hosted anywhere, right? Irrespective of, you're with Google Vertex, Agent Force, whether you're using any of your legacy tools, or you already have like a subscription from a Claude, OpenAI, like a Bedrock, right? We have an agent gateway. You can bring all of them into a single platform, what we call as watsonx Orchestrate, right? That's the crux of what we're trying to build at IBM. I did highlight the point that the simplest part of this equation is actually building the agents, right? By that I mean, let's say even like if building agents is so simple, why do we not see too many agents which are in production at this point in time, right? That's primarily because 80% of the work is what you see in the pyramid, right? Which is how do I integrate with my existing system seamlessly? How do I evaluate and deploy? This could be as simple as when you write a piece of code, you go line by line checking the logic, the syntax, and how all of that stitches together, right? So can we do the same thing with agents? Uh, then is monitoring and observability, where I'm talking about agents which are natively built or let's say third-party agents. Like how do you monitor them, right? A simple example of that could be if I'm applying a leave, right? So if my boss approves my leave, is there auditability to that workflow in terms of who audited it, and if there is any traceability in terms of what time of the day did I apply, what models were used, and all of those, right? And since we are talking about a lot of agents, can we have like a governance and a compliance framework that is stitched together, because all of these agents are built using different technology framework, like I had mentioned, right? Similar thing goes for security and access control. By security access control, I mean uh, as simple as the data that I shouldn't have access to shouldn't be made available to me, right? How do we optimize on the performance? Today, I'm going to do a demo about multi-agent orchestration, where how can multiple agents, tools collaborate to actually solve for a business problem, right? And continuous improvement is more on the agentic op, just like AI ML ops. How can you continuously keep improving, making sure your agents are working as they're supposed to? This is again a very interesting slide, and while I'll not get into the details because I'm going to cover a lot of it during the demo. What you see here on the right hand side is more important. We call it a control plane within IBM Orchestrate, right? And so that you're able to draw parallels, I'll give you a simple example of Microsoft, because that's an ecosystem a lot of people are already aware of, right? Now, when you talk about building an agent, depending on the complexity, you're using multiple services. A simple example of that is if you're building an agent, you need a Copilot Studio access. The moment you want to do some complex workflows, then you need Power Automate. Then if you need any complex monitoring, you need Sentinel. If you need to create some complex pipelines, then you need Azure Data Factory, right? And all of this are different tools, different subscriptions. So the whole idea is how can we give the observability like how do we evaluate all these agents before they go live, auditability, identity access control, how your APIs are monitored and kept safe using like the credential management tool that is available. But all of this is available in a single platform, right? That is key. That's key here. Madhur, sorry, did you have any question?
One thing which strikes in my mind is this has been a traditional, the problem with the other, the AI platforms, right? So I would call them as consumer AI and not enterprise AI, right? With the enterprise AI platforms like Orchestrate, this control planes, plays a vital role, and that's where the trust factor, right, and adaptability begins to start, and we get more and more traction around it. So very very good point to touch upon. Thank you.
Absolutely, Madhur. Completely resonate with that idea, because I mean, the more we get deeper into these conversations, like the reality is very different from what we actually see, right? And it's more than just writing prompts and just building agents, right? I mean, if you are somebody who's a part of a CISO, CIO, CTO office, then you realize that building a control plane within the organization and how do you govern all of that is equally as important, right? So that's that. Also, one slide before I actually show you one of the use cases is, and this is something like personally I see a lot of value in, right? Because I'm a business user myself. Now, when you talk about building agents or working with LLMs in general, there is a natural notion that I could ask a question or I could execute a task or a workflow, but then I have very little to no control. By that I mean, Madhur was also touching upon initially that can we move beyond just a Q&A kind of use cases, right? When I ask a question, it is believed that I'll get a definite answer, and that is my Bible. But then when you ask a question, there are multiple steps, right? That could be fetching the right data. The agent could be making a MCP call, API call, it'd be checking for the right certificates. They have access to it, and then the agent goes about doing the reasoning, the processing, and then it actually generates, right? So there are multiple steps, right? Similar to just writing a piece of code. Again, if I go back to that example, um, when you're actually testing it or when you're actually debugging it, you go line by line to understand what is wrong, right? So how do we have like a agent debugging, which you see on this slide, right? When you're asking a question, it actually creates a workflow in terms of the moment you asked a question, what are the different workflows, tasks, what are the different tools that were called. And let's say if your answer is not responded in the fashion that you expected it to, then can you really pinpoint that what actually went wrong? Whether it was tool, whether the certificates expired, whether it was any issue with the API calling, or is model not able to pull the data and is it just hallucinating, right? So that's a very important component of that. I could just quickly run you through it, but then you see. The moment you click on agent reasoning, it basically opens up a plethora of things under how is it collaborating with different tools and how is it doing the reasoning and coming back to you with the answers, right? So that being the whole idea. And I think one last slide that I have is on use cases. We at IBM, we firmly believe in the philosophy of we walk the talk, right? Before we preach anything to our clients, we call this whole thing as client zero, which basically means we already have this agentic solutions that are deployed. A simple example of that could be we are 280,000 people across the globe, and growing, I believe. And if you go and talk to any IBMer, do we have any dedicated HR, IT, or a ops person that we speak to, right? And we've been on this journey for about 3 years now, where if I have to ask for any employee support related issue, it could be like a payslip related issue. It could be anything to do with, let's say, I want to apply for a loan. What is my eligibility? Or if I want to basically anything that you could think of from a hire to retire cycle, all of that process have been automated and the numbers speak for themselves, right? I mean, I'm flashing those numbers so you can just have a look at it. But then similarly, if I move to IT, right from, let's say, you've been locked out of your MacBook or Windows, or you want to reset your passwords, issues with VPN, anything that you could think of has been automated. And literally, like 80% of the time, we see that it's the same mundane, repetitive task that needs to be automated, right? So we have done that, and we've done it for sales, we've done it for procurement, we've done it for sales incentives. The latest one, what you don't see here on the slide, is also around Ask Finance. Right. And the number that you see on the top is $4.5 billion worth of AI productivity gains. And obviously, for a size of a company like IBM, that's huge, right? And these are not just numbers out of a storybook, right? These are literally SEC audited numbers, right? So a lot of value, a lot of use cases that we are internally driving within IBM with before we actually take this to our clients. I'll pause this here. I think I'm good on a presentation front, and I can give you a demo. But Madhur, I'll just pause to see if there are any questions, any comments from your side.
So one question I could see flashing up here is around how do we really restrict nations when it comes to the AI chat builder. I think he's trying to ask more from the how do we restrict the hallucinations, and how we can be well covered.
Sure. I mean, I could quickly touch upon that piece when I'm doing that's basically around the hallucination, right?
Exactly.
Okay, sure. I could basically give a live demo. I'm just pulling up my live instance. Madhu, let me know once it's up.
Sure.
You should be able to see this, right?
Yes.
Welcome to watsonx Orchestrate. Okay. So what I have planned for this session is I'll keep it straight, where I'll give you a platform overview in terms of how do you go about building an agent, right? After that, I have a specific use case for like a manufacturing apparel company in terms of how this agents can really help them in their day-to-day operations, right? So I'll cover that piece as well. Now, this is what the interface looks right. The moment you open uh, the Orchestrate window, you will get a window which says you can start creating your own agents, which I'm going to do shortly. Um, you can explore agent catalog. You can have go through more documentation, or you can connect to external agents, which I spoke about, right? If you already have those agents, how you can actually bring them in. I'll simply click on agent catalog because I want to show you the catalog of agents, MCP, and tools that already exist. Okay. Now, by that, I mean we have more than 300 plus agents that are built. We have more than 1,000 plus tools and MCP servers that are ready to go. Let's say there are multiple use cases, right? It could be HR, it could be IT, it could be anything related to your operations, or if there are any multiple tools, SAP, Oracle, anything that you worked, anything that you could think of, we have ready-made tools that you could directly get connected to, right? So the whole idea being we understand each organization comes with their own complexity while we give them the customization, but then at the same time, we do have like a partner portal where someone like Octane would come in and they can publish their own agents and tools, right? So that happens via this marketplace. The idea being you don't have to start from the scratch. Probably you can pick and choose the use cases, the workflows that are already defined, right? So that the implementation cycle goes down drastically. That being the whole idea. Now, chat is a simple interface where after I build the agents, how do I go and start interacting with the agent? And I'm going to spend a lot of time there, so I'm going to skip that. Now, what is the mechanism to building an agent, right? I've already built a few agents like you see for this demo. I've built more than 24 tools. Now, the simplest way for you to understand what are agents is obviously agents are something that can execute a task on your behalf, right? So if you look at agents as a nervous system, the simplest, like a oversimplified version of what a tool could be the hands and legs that execute the task on your behalf, right? It could be as simple as pulling a list of accounts from Salesforce or executing any task on ServiceNow or any other tools that already exist, or if you want to custom build those, right? I'll uh, I'll create something from the grounds up. Let's say I'm just going to name it webinar agent. I can choose what is the right model, and I can actually give the description and the instructions. So as you can see, there is nothing. I mean, there's no rocket science here, right? I mean, the description would basically mean that if this is Manoj Shetty, he's a brand technical sales specialist. What describes the agent, right? And instructions would be set of things the agent is supposed to do. A simple example of that could be like if I take again my own example, then I take care of AI as a business. I cannot answers coming in from business automation or hardware portfolio. What is the tone of the language that should be used? What are some of the tools that I can access? And there was a question around how do we reduce the hallucination, right? So during this testing phase, right, you can write those descriptions in plain natural English in terms of what are the inputs, what are the outputs. Um, Actually, the agent that I've already built, I'll actually show you, right? When I was testing, there was kind of hallucinations and there were longer answers that I was getting than it was expected. So how do you crunch that in to just make sure that the answer is pulled in directly from the tools, from the other tools that it is connected to, rather than actually making up any answers by itself, right? So you can write those instructions that you're not supposed to um, pull data from the internet. You're not supposed to answer anything that is beyond the knowledge base that is being fed to you. So all of those instructions are fed here. There are certain guidelines that you could add here in terms of what are the conditions, what are the actions. And let's say if it doesn't have access to any of those tools, it's not supposed to answer that. So all of those things can be easily defined here. If you, I mean, we do have integration, or we do have partnership with a lot of voice providers. We have our own STT right? So if you want to enable these use cases with voice capabilities, you could do that as well. If you want to upload documents, you could do that. It could be a simple RAG use case. Or if you want to schedule, right? A simple example of how do you interact with the agent is only two ways, right? One, Manoj has built an agent, and let's say I'm giving it access to Madhur. So Madhur can either chat and ask, oh, hey, how's my sales at Octane, right? So that's one way of interacting um, with the agent. But the other way is if I schedule it. Let's say if our sales in the South region is lower than 70%, it should trigger an email to Madhur, right? So that is what I mean by scheduling, and that's more of a event-driven triggers that actually go out. Now, knowledge is knowledge, where you have a standard operating plan, you have your policy documents, you can upload all of that in here. You can upload the tools right now. Like I said, right, tools are very instrumental to make sure your agents don't hallucinate, or they work in a very optimal fashion, right? And what I want to show you is also what the interface looks like, where you can natively connect to any of the tools that are available through a MCP server, open API, local instance. We have our own catalog of things. I'll show you how we can go about building agents using Bob later in the session. But I want to show you a agentic workflow. This is nothing but a Langflow, a company that we had acquired earlier last year. Now, if you just look at this interface, right, it's completely designed for business users as long as you have a basic know-how in terms of how do you go about building agents, right? That means as long as you can define an input. A simple example that could be like a document that is coming in for KYC, right? Now we can have a document classifier, which classifies what kind of document is it. Now it could be a document extractor to extract that information. And if you want to pull in, let's say, data out of that specific fields that you want to pull out, right? If Manoj is applying for a loan, it could be Manoj Shetty as a customer name. It could be my phone number. It could be my IMEI number for the loan that I've applied for a loan. All of those information could be captured. And the interesting bit is what you see here is there are options like logic block, right? Not all the events that will be triggered are probabilistic. Like we know that agents or LLMs are good dealing with um, like probabilistic problems, right? But let's say if there is any deterministic flow, right? Something like a RPA, or you exactly know what is the flow of a business problem is going to go through. So you can completely define that. And if I open a code editor, this is nothing but there's a piece of Python code that could be quickly embedded there. And if you want a human in the loop, right? To just cross verify if things are working fine or not, all of that could be done. And then you can again define variables in output, right? So it is uh, I know it's a oversimplified explanation of how to build a tool, but then you get the fair idea of what do I mean by defining a tool, right? So you can add that tool and it just gets added. Like each of these tools are tagged to a agent, right? And these are agents. Right now, agent is agent. Now, whether you want to pull it from our catalog, whether from your local instance, or you want to import something that you have externally built, you can do all of those as well. There is something to really monitor how your agents are performing. Like whether after you've deployed this in production, you would definitely want to know what is the latency, how many agents are proactively being used, what is the kind of conversations that we are having, latency, what is the average conversation, how many unique users have actually uh, used it, right? So all that agent analytics could be seen here. And this is the newest feature around agent optimization. I've already tried, tested it, where this is basically the ops piece, right? Where if you, after you've deployed this, let's say a office of CIO or a CTO really wants to understand what are the overall agents, how do you evaluate an agent, and you want to make sure you optimize that agent after that's been deployed in production. How do you go about doing that, right? So this is completely, I mean, you can interact with each of this pane that is available, right? So that's the uh, available option to you. And I'll not go through everything, but then access management, let's say if me and Madhur wants to work on a project, how do I give access to Madhur and Sheila and all of that, right? So all of those things can be well taken care of. An interesting thing is also around enterprise controls, like what should be my data retention, what are the um, guardrails that I need to have around network analytics. I could do all of that. And also around the asset control piece. Right now, if I create this control, I could just select if I want this to be set around the agent, models, MCP. It could be as simple as, let's say, if I do agents right here in this case, and then I need a PII filter to just make sure none of the confidential data um, is being pulled out, or you want to mask it, or whatever your use cases, depending on what data you're working with. All of that enterprise grade controls you have natively built into the platform. Madhur, are we good so far? I mean, I just wanted to give a platform overview before I take up any of the use cases. So please let me know there if you want me to cover anything else, or are we good to start with a use case?
We are good, Manoj.
Okay, perfect. So I'm for a second, I'm just going to switch back to my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, to this is, I mean, I've just taken the liberty. I mean, I know it's not a very well documented use case, but then I think I just wanted to give you a lay of the land, right? And like I've also seen a saturation when it comes to only showing us IT or a HR kind of use cases. Nothing taking nothing away from it. It's very important as well. But the more conversations that we are having with clients, I remember I was having this conversation with Madhur as well, in terms of how manufacturing companies have also started leveraging AI agents. And this is not talking about customer success kind of operation. This is like how AI agents are really touching their life on a day-to-day basis, or touching their day-to-day operations, right? So that's the reason I've taken the liberty to take up a operations manufacturing kind of use case here. And this is a apparel manufacturing company where uh, you have to understand how the business works, right? Let's say there is a surge in the demand, 10%. The first thing that they would do is they would go back and check if they have enough inventory or not, right, for the demand to be fulfilled. If they can fulfill, great. But more or less, if there is 10%, 15% increase in surge, and they don't have enough inventory, then they look for, do I have enough raw materials? Do I have enough production capacity to absorb this load? Do I have enough workforce? Right? Sometimes it's not just the workforce who are people on the floor. These are skilled people, some people who are actually specializing in stitching and all of that, right? So do we have that in check? And do I have enough distribution to fulfill all of this? And at the same time, let's say if we can fulfill, great. But if we can't, then we have to outsource some of the work to one of our vendors. In that case, another thread starts, right? So where I have to check, like, what is the production capacity some of these vendors can have. If I need to deliver these products in another 30 days, which are the vendors that I could choose? How do I prioritize that, right? So it's a very complex use case, so to say, right? And I'll give you a walkthrough here as well. Now, before I actually like execute some of those questions and show you the live demo, I'll actually show how this agent was built. Now, in the behavior section, I've built a Apex apparel like a business orchestrator. I've chosen what the right model is for this specific use case, right? And I've given a description where what is this agent, right? And what are the kind of tasks it can execute. Instructions is it is a AI specialist. What are the different agents that it will have access to? Like I mentioned, I was not happy with some of the tone in which it was answering. Some of them were very large answers. So how do I define the behavior of that agent to give me like a crisp answer? And we are assuming that it's the C-suite uh, people who are actually asking very blunt questions in terms of their business, what needs to be done, and all of those things, right? So we have to keep it short and to the point rather than just giving a complete summary, irrespective of what questions they're asking, right? So a lot of modifications have been done. Knowledge has been fed, and if you just look at agents, right? It's a very complex use case, like I showed you on the slide, where the moment you ask a question, there are five, four, and four, right? So there are more than 10 tools that are being deployed across three different agents. One is a demand, supply, inventory, checking for production related data. You also have manufacturing, you also have workforce kind of data. To think of this as, let's say, a data that is being pulled into your SAP systems, Apex manufacturing, or if there is anything around a workforce kind of thing that is coming from your HRMS system, and your sales intelligence, let's say it's spread across your disparate systems, or it's available in the form of a CSV, right? So how do we work for to solve for a business problem through this? That is the problem that we're actually trying to solve for. Having said that, I'll move to the chat window so that you can visibly see what are the questions that could be asked. Now, Apex Business Orchestrator is a master orchestrator that will work with different agents, right, for demand, sales, and operations, right? Now, I'm going to ask a simple question. How are we doing on sales? And though it looks like a very vague question, I wanted to ask this primarily because um, these are business users, right? So there is no certain structure in which they ask, right? But then the advantage of LLM is it really understands the context. And before we read through the answers, I'll also show you it's a multi-step process, which means it is working through multiple agents, multiple tools within those agents, and this is going through different products, going through different tools. So in this case, all these agents are interacting with each other, because the moment you're talking about sales, it also means how we doing on demand, supply, how are we doing on distribution, how we are doing on workforce, right? So it works with all of that and then gives me a simple to explain crisp answer. It says, though the sales are solid, South region is something that we need to be wary of. We seem to be off our overall target, right? Company-wide attainment is 84, which is great, nothing to be worried about. But then it also says South India core SKUs, which is sitting at 45% of the sales target, and distribution also seems to be on the lower side. North and West and East factories are running at excess inventory, so we can shift the output to the south if needed. And how are we doing on distribution as well, right? So it's interacted all the three agents and the underlying tools and given you an answer. And it has given you if what has happened, but what are the priority things that you could act on immediately, right? So it says we can replenish the distributors which are lower than 50K units, deploy the target and push out some promotions to better the sales in South region. It also says 15% of surplus production from West can be moved to South, right? To even or to compensate for the loss the South region is having, right? Now, the first thing that I would want to do is, can you help summarize this as an email and send it to the production manager? And I'll just give my email, right, which is ibm.com, right? So it can understand that. It can actually I'll just ask, give me the draft. It's already says I've already sent it, right? So probably you could just have that mechanism set where it actually gives you a draft. You've gone through it. What are the key points? What are the productions? And then let's say if it is good to go, it can actually go out and send an email, right? So that way you close the loop in terms of things that are going wrong. That has created an email and then it has pushed out an email on your behalf, right? And it can be two ways. Like I mentioned, it could be through a chat interface. It could also be a event-based trigger where if it is anyways lesser than inventory is lesser than 50%, I sent out a email trigger to, let's say, Madhur as a operations manager, right? The I could also I know Octane also has specialization in planning analytics, where you pull in data from multiple departments and then you do scenario planning. By scenario, I also mean what if kind of
Right.
analysis that is done quite a bit, right? So if you want to ask questions in terms of, let's say, it's a very situational question which says, can we handle 10% demand increase in swimwear? Right. So again, when you talk about demand, it is trying to gather data from all the agents across different tools. There are multiple steps that are executed, and it tells we can, but only if we act on the production and distribution. So how are we doing on demand with 10%, the current stock, and what is the shortfall? So on a supply front, production must add 3,500 units in 30 days. And the outsource like if you have to outsource 730 units a day from a contractor in Tirupur while starting a higher train program for internal to take care of the internal capacity. And similarly, from a distribution standpoint, two of the three distributors have been flagged low inventory. So how do we help them replenish immediately, right? Again, you can summarize this and you can automate all of that. So this was
Exactly.
just
And,
right.
and I
Right.
think that the difference becomes more clear rather than asking people to manually connect all the information and get the pointers right. The different agent can help you bring all those relevant information and the pieces together, and that's where the multi-agent orchestration becomes more the powerful for you to get what is required.
Absolutely, absolutely, Madhur. Like you see, right? I mean, there are multiple steps where you have to call the data from multiple agents, tools. And the beauty of this is, I mean, I understand the manufacturing setup is very different, right? Because you're not carrying your laptops everywhere. So it is very very difficult. So some of them have their monitors near their, their production units where all of these triggers are pushed out to them, right? So rather than you coming to the software asking questions, these are some of the alerts that can be proactively pushed out to them. um, we also have different means, right? Irrespective, let's say they're using WhatsApp, they're using Teams, they're using Slack, anything that you could think of, right? So we have native integration, even phone SMS or via Twilio, we can push out those native notifications, right? So if there are business users who are always on the field, so we have the mechanism to push out this analytics so that you drive a culture within the organization where all of this information or the decisions is made based on data rather than based on the intuition, right? um
We
the
have
other piece, yes.
we have two questions coming in. One is from the Javid Mohammed. His question is, can multi-agent orchestration support real-time scenario modeling, allowing finance teams to rapidly access the impact of volume, margin, pricing, and cost changes? That's his question.
Right. I mean, as long as you have like the right data infrastructure to support it, absolutely. I mean, a simple example is, I mean, we do work with a lot of like a anti-money laundering use cases with some of those banks, right? Where data is literally pushed out of like the Kafka, like we had Confluent, like we just finished the Confluent acquisition, right? So most of the data streaming that happens is close to real time, right? So as long as you have the right infrastructure to push out the data, there is no limitation from a product standpoint, right? We could do that on an immediate basis.
Correct, correct. And then, the I would say subsequent question is, if AI agent, generates a recommendation on narratives, can user trace the source or the systems, calculations and assumptions which are kind of used to arrive at that particular conclusion?
So you mean tracing all the
Act-
sources, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, there's definitely a mechanism to do all of that, right? I mean, that could be done at the back end. So we do have provisions for doing that as well. So in the front end, we do show like the multi-step orchestration piece, but then if you just make some settings changes at the back end, that could be done so that every answer that you get, it could be traced back to where it is coming from, right? That's where the whole piece around agentic control plane really comes into play, honestly. So all of that could be well taken care of.
Perfect. Can I one more question?
Sorry, Madhur, what was that? I
Can
lost
we
you for the
one more
last.
question?
Yeah,
We
sure.
have a question coming to Vijay Krishnan. His question is, the end user of SAP faces an interruption in operations. When confronted with the error message, uh, the user connected to IT team. IT team study the SAP system authorizations, ABAP program, and response. How to use AI within this process?
Uh, AI need to learn itself by connecting to master data configuration. No manual intervention or documentation to train.
That's, I think, this the second question he has got. But more on that, what he's trying to say is he wants to understand if
Mhm.
the multi-agent kind of orchestration can be deployed between the SAP as an ecosystem, right? When you have the IT team coming in, then the ABAP programmer coming in, and you have certain authorizations and guardrails been kind of infringed. So how do we manage or have the AI being seamlessly responding to these kind of scenarios?
So, still, Madhur, I'm not extremely clear on what the ask is, but from what I've understood, right? So, see, we are a platform provider per se, right? So, as long as you just know what is the flow, right? I am not, as a platform, I'm not telling you to pick and choose between a deterministic versus a probabilistic kind of approach. Okay,
Correct.
so as long as you know where the data is coming from, what is the flow, it could be deterministic. If it is probabilistic, um, we can actually define that. As long as we can define that as a part of the workflow, and then let's say we can have the human in the loop to approve that, okay, all of this seems fine, like whatever your IT team was doing, let's say it has to go to the IT for, let's say, a approval which says this looks good, let's go ahead, and then you continue the flow, right? If that is the direction in which the question is going, then we do have the mechanism to do it, because we are, like I mentioned, it's a tool provider irrespective of whether it is deterministic or probabilistic, or if you want to just define a workflow, we can provide all of that. But then I'm more than happy, Vijay, if you want to just get in touch and do like a deep dive to understand what your workflow is, then probably I can give you some concrete answers.
So for everyone's benefit, there is the QR scan code just at the right side of the screen. You can just simply scan it and book a meeting with me. And definitely, me and Manoj is happy to kind of get over the call and have the detailed session again. Over to you again, Manoj.
So one last piece that might be very interesting here, Madhur, is also, I think, is Bob. Okay. Now, if you like I mentioned, probably I'm not the most technical person as well, right? But last 6 months, this is what I've been doing. I've done a lot of exploration in this space where I've started building through the workflow, right? Drag and drop and try to execute some of those use cases. But then also I've had my hands-on training with Bob. Like think of Bob as a AI assistant throughout your SDLC lifecycle, right? So if you know of Claude Codex, if you know Claude Code or let's say Open AI Codex, now you know that. Uh, they are AI assistant that is basically helping you build a software, right? But software building is just one portion of it, right? But when you talk about a SDLC lifecycle, you're talking about like testing it, deploying it, creating CI/CD pipelines, and pushing things to your GitHub repository. And then there is code modernization. How do you build agents using Bob, right? So the whole spectrum of SDLC that you could think of could be covered using Bob, right? What you see, are you able to see my screen, right? I
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it,
right. Uh, so the thing here is like if there are different modes, okay, and you can create custom modes here where you want to ask questions, where if you want to plan, or I'm in the agent mode, right, where I gave this use case specifically where the use case that I actually showed you, right? So all of those were actually natively built using Bob. So I've done a lot of tweaking in terms of what is the expected outcomes, uh, like the kind of questions it should answer, the way it should answer, how do we go about importing tools, agents, right? And it has MCP connections. If I apart from different modes, right, and permissions, if I go to settings here, this is basically where you can natively connect to MCP servers, and you will see I'm already connected to Orchestrate. Like the platform that you see here is Bob, and Orchestrate is the agentic platform that I actually give you a run through of, right? So when it connects to a ADK, which is an agent development kit, what it does is it really understands the skeleton. The moment I give the use case, right, it it actually goes and actually builds those agent, and it actually knows the framework in terms of if Manoj is telling me to build an agent, what is the name of the agent, what is the description, what is the instruction, how do I go about building tools, what are the guardrails that needs to be in place to make sure my answers don't hallucinate. All of that framework is already defined within this platform, right? So this would have taken me a couple of hours maximum to create a tool, like a demo of sorts, right? So all of that could be natively taken care of within the platform. We have something called as Bobalytics, which is like if you want to keep a transparent track of like how many Bob coins are actually getting consumed and all of that, you could natively do that within the platform, because I understand that there are a lot of companies who are coming back to us talking about like the token consumption, right? Everybody is worried about the more token consumptions that their developers are, right? So how do we keep all of those points in check? And to mitigate that, right, what we have done is we have 8 underlying models. So Bob chooses the right model, right? A simple example of that could be um, the let's say if you're using Claude code just because like Opus is really great at code completion, but it also one of the flagship models which is going to take up a lot of token, which translates into higher uh, like higher money that you end up paying, right? So how can Bob orchestrate that if you have to do a code completion versus testing or documentation, could be we could use a smaller model, and how do we optimize it, right? So all of that happens automatically so that your all of these parameters are in check, right? So that's the whole idea of bringing Bob into the equation. How do you fast track that whole process, right? We have had instances where we have gone live with all the implementation frameworks in place within a week, because most of the work when it comes to building and implementation and testing were automated using Bob, right? So I just wanted to give you a flavor of Bob as well, uh, because they work within the ecosystem, so it's natively supports building agents as well, right? So that's the whole idea. uh, I think I'm good, Madhur. If there are any questions, then we could take that, but otherwise I think I hope the session was useful.
Thank you, thank you so much, Manoj. This was really insightful demonstration, and I think uh, one of the key takeaway from the the today's session is the difference between the simply looking at the information and actually using that information to understand the business problem, right? Uh, and traditionally, we face the complex business questions. We may kind of need to look at the different this dashboard or the systems. We might have to kind of start with the sales data, then move supply chain, and then look at the manufacturing capacity. Then perhaps the other team to kind of come in and understand the availability of the workforce. And what we have seen
Absolutely.
is altogether. We have the multi-specialized agents looking at those respective, the areas and, working together to kind of understand the picture of, the holistic business approach, right? And I think this is where the real value, lies. And the objective is not just to provide the another, a kind of a skeleton or not a skeleton, but the dashboard. But the objective is organization to move from data to understanding, to identifying the constants, and ultimately, towards the recommended actions and the decision making. That is what, at nutshell, is what remains important everywhere, right? And but the technologies like this can potentially reduce the effort required to kind of gather information and help teams to kind of reach to the more informed decision, and that can be taken more fast as well, right? While we are taking few more questions, I really want everyone to kind of scan the QR code and book a one-on-one meeting, right? So I could see a few questions coming in, Manoj. So one question is, if an organization already has AI models or uses open source or other agent framework, can this be integrated natively with watsonx Orchestrate, or would they require to be rebuilt?
No, I mean, that is the whole value proposition, honestly. Like Madhur was also touching upon, right? I mean, we do understand some of the investments that you've already made. So, irrespective where those models are, I mean, whether it's open source or let's say, I mean, we do have a model gateway through which you can bring in all those models and have them as a part of the platform, right? So, definitely available as a capability within the platform itself.
Perfect. The next question is, how can Orchestrate be used when the business has combination of deterministic rule-based workflows and probabilistic AI-driven workflows?
Right. And I think this is where I was just trying to tie it back to the question that was asked, right? I previously mentioned that as a platform, that capability exists, whether it is deterministic or probabilistic. So we don't want you to pick either or, right? I mean, both of those capabilities exist. My only um, recommendation would be to find the right use cases before you start building agents blindly, right? So as long as you're very clear that okay, we have had RPS and we already know what it can do, right? If there is incremental value in bringing in agents, only then do it. Just don't do it for the sake, because everybody is building agents. Let's not build agents, right? That should be, I think, the mind frame.
Perfect. Thank you so much again. So thank you, Manoj, for taking to the demonstration and sharing sites today. And thank you everyone who joined and participated in today's session. I hope the webinar has helped you to kind of make the clear the concept of agentic AI a little more practical and easier the concepts to kind of understand. The key message which I would like to kind of address here is, or everyone to kind of take away. Uh, Future is not necessarily is going to be about replacing your every systems, right, or creating more and more reports and dashboard. It's all about finding better ways to kind of connect with your knowledge and capabilities that already exists within the organizations, right. So with this note, I'm taking a leave now, and thank you so much again. Have a good day. Thank you, Manoj, once again.
Thank you so much, Madhur. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye bye.